to can you allow me share screen, please? I cannot. I don't know why it is not my screen. Are you able to see my screen now? Are you able to see my screen? Hello?
Yes.
We are able, Bishop.
Okay. What you see here is, as you noticed, that we started with, on Monday, we were in Jinja. And then the next day, where we covered these districts of Yende, Jinja Rural, Kamuli, Northern Jinja, Jinja Central. So we had all the pastors from those areas come on Monday. Then on Tuesday, we're in Iganga. And we had districts leaders from Bugiri Municipality, Bugwele, Namaingo, Iganga Municipality, Kalilo, Luuka, Mayuge, na Mutumba. We have had a very, very good turnout. It could have even been much bigger if we had a way to help facilitate them. But we especially emphasized the presence of women, women leaders, women intercessors. We made sure that they are mobilized because we want to create a network of prayer for these women and also men. So initially we were thinking about women, but when Bishop Kabuye joined, he said, you know what, we shouldn't leave the men out. And so when we get into the place, we register these women leaders and men so that after we've completed the national tour, we'll be connecting, we'll agree on some days on which we can connect by Zoom like we are doing now. We'll be able to mobilize national prayers using these women and the men, these leaders, where we can mobilize a 24/7 prayer network to intercede, to pray the way we do now. And then once in a while, at least once a week, we'll be meeting together. So when we left Busoga, that was Busoga region, then we went into Bukedi. Bukedi, we started with Tororo. We were able to meet the leaders, as you've said. All of us were shocked about that information, that Bukedi used to be one of the richest districts. It used to lend the government of Uganda. It used to be number 3. Now it is second from the bottom, second poorest, only better than Karamoja. So, you know, we saw, but leaders there, the pastors, have gotten involved deeply into the transformation process. One of the pastors, the pastor from Deliverance Church, is the president of, I've forgotten what they call it, but it brings together the state and non-state actor, the local government leaders and the non-state, the ones who are not in a public office, pastors, cultural leaders. So the one who leads that is the pastor, and they are in charge of development, supervising government programs, supervising monies that are sent, and all that kind of thing. So we were able to meet the LOC5, the RDC, and the mayor, prayed with them in the office. They were so receptive, amazingly, very, very receptive. And they were so happy that we went and prayed for them. We could tell how the RDC was very happy that we could visit his office, and we inspired them. I shared the word of God, their responsibility, God's plan of transforming societies and communities. So we really had a good time there with the local leaders. And then we had, later on, we went and met the pastors up to late in the evening. And then we moved to Mbale, where we spent the night. We spent a whole day in the place, and then we move in the evening. By about 6:30, we are finished, and then we drive. We get to the next city about 7 p.m. or so. So we arrived in Mbale, and in Mbale, we had all these districts you see. Bodadiri, Bulambuli, Silonko, Bududa, Bunanafa, Mbale district, Namisindwa, Budaka, Butebo, Kibuku, Palisa. All these district leaders came and were together in Mbale. But we were also, before we met the pastors, very early in the morning, we went to Butaleja district. We met the cow and then prayed. He gave us a testimony of how prayer has changed the district of Butaleja. He mentioned that the day he arrived in the district as the new cow, his colleague, the one who was before him, was taken in and into the prison, and the fear in the district, the witchcraft. Everybody said everybody in the office was on drip. The sicknesses, 4 leaders had died. The scare of witchcraft was so much, he was not even sure he would make it. But along the way, a few days later, the bishop, or our bishop, overseer in Mbale, the provincial overseer, called him. I said, I've heard you are the new cow, and I've got your number. I'm coming to pray with you. So while we were thinking about that, you didn't know what to do. There were no churches nearby. We were so scared about the witchcraft. But then when the bishop came with a team of others, and Apostle Batambuze had visited that area, and he comes from that, he comes from that area. So he went in, they prayed. He said that prayer changed everything. From that day until now, there has been a great change in the whole district. We were so happy to hear that testimony. Everybody recognized the change. And the cow said, I had to appoint one of the top officials in the district to lead the prayer altar. So they meet and pray every week. Now the RDC is involved, the RDC or ROC5 is involved. All these district leaders are now attending the prayer altars because they now noticed the change. And some of them are Muslims, others are Roman Catholics, others are Anglicans, but they have all now accepted that we need these prayers if we are to sustain the district and subdue the levels of witchcraft that had created so much threats in the district. So it was a powerful, really powerful testimony. When this person who is a non-believer is testifying to the power of prayer and said, none of us miss it. He also said that it was the district leaders who started, but now other people in the community are starting to join the prayer altar. So the prayer altar is growing, led by these Pentecostals. The district leaders are involved, Muslims, Christians, Roman Catholics, Anglican, and the people in the community. What a blessing, where people now acknowledge God, that the Lord is the solution to their problems. Then we moved from Butareja, and then we went to Budaka. Budaka, we met at first, we started with the LOC5, immediately summoned the cow, and the deputy said, we have these guests. They introduced me as the outgoing Archbishop of Balokole. We were so excited because they had also started an altar. They started by telling us the testimony of what has happened ever since prayer altars started in the district. And they said all our staff are now attending. They look forward to that day when the time of prayer. It was just amazing. This bishop, our bishop, a provincial overseer in Mbale, is doing a wonderful work. What he's doing has been, repeated in various districts, and now all of them, the districts are all aware. The person who is in charge of RDCs now calls him whenever he hears there is a problem in a district. He calls this provincial overseer, and tells him there is a problem in this district. Can you please go there? There is a problem in this area. Can you go there? This is a non-believer calling a believer, a pastor, and saying we have a problem in the district and we need your help. Now that is just amazing. So we prayed with the LOC5 and the cow and the deputy, and then went to the RDC's office. He was so excited because he was outside the field, he was in the field. He said, when I got the phone call that you are coming, I abandoned what I was doing and I rushed back here because the prayers that were started here have brought a great change. He's a SDA, he's a Seventh-day Adventist. But he said, although I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, this bishop here, I asked him to become my bishop because of what I've seen happening through his prayers. And he says, I'm always the first one to go for the prayer altar. I'm always the first, 7 o'clock, I'm there. Even when it starts at 8, I'm always there between 7 and 7:30. And when I shared the word, he said, what you are sharing, Bishop, I've never heard. This morning, he said I was going to meet the PDM, Parish Development Model, people who have come from all the districts. I didn't even have a message. Now what you have shared is what I'm going to share. We want to ask you that you'll accept for me, I'm going to mobilize all my my other colleagues in other districts, all the districts of Ukadi, so that we have a general workshop, at least for RDCs, LOC5s, cows, at least with a few other, about 9 people from every district, so that we can have a workshop of 2 or 3 days. Come and teach us the things. I'll talk with our leader at the national level so that they can mobilize for that. That was amazing. That was amazing coming from him. So they are from Budaka. Then we moved to Mbale, where the pastors had come. We spent quite a bit of time in prayer. I was sharing about the issues of homosexuality, why we are at the crossroads at the moment. There was so much prayer that went forth, that is in Mbale town. So then after that, the team now moved to Kapchora, another team to Buko. Bishop Odongo moved to Buko to meet a few leaders there. The rest of the team were in Kapchora, where we had the Kapchora municipality, Kweni, and Buko leaders come together. There were so many. The whole place was full. We shared about the nation and the issue of homosexuality and the protection of the family. And we spent quite a good time in prayer. We had several leaders leading in prayer, praying for the nation, praying for the president, praying for while we were in Mbale, we understood that the president was meeting the NRM caucus to discuss the Homosexuality Act. So a lot of prayer. We did a lot of prayer and prophetic action to pray through during that time when they were sitting, we were praying. And we were happy to learn yesterday that they agreed on the changes that have to be made in that act. And the president on Tuesday will be meeting the select committee, the legal committee of parliament, to treat the act before it is signed into law. So yesterday we finished late. I had to go through some place in Namataba, Nagoje. We delayed a little bit, went through that area. I could not join you on the Bible study. I tried a little bit. You might have seen me coming in and off because the network wasn't very good until I gave up. But that is the summary of what we've been doing in the week. I thought I should give you that update because on Sunday, tomorrow afternoon, we'll be leaving for Masaka, as you see on Monday. Then on Tuesday, we'll be in Mbarara. On Wednesday, we'll be in Kabale. On Thursday, we'll be in Lukungiri. On Friday, we'll be in Fort Portal. So this is our next leg of the tour. So we pray that you really join us and send us out whichever way you feel led, and support that effort. Now I want to go back to what we were sharing about this is about the family. I was sharing about the family, and I want to go back to those attacks, the 7 areas how families attacked, as Bishop has just mentioned. Let me quickly recap what we had covered last time. I don't remember when, but we had covered a bit of this. The 5-generational rule. The 5-generational rule says that how parents raise their children, the love they give them, the values they teach them, the emotional environment they create, the education they provide, influences not only their children, but the 4 generations to follow, either for good or for evil. For example, if children live with criticism every day, they learn to condemn. They learn that language because you are always criticizing them, or what they live with, they learn to do. That's how children, that's why family is important. If children live with hostility in the family, they see the father shouting at the mother or with the other people, they learn to fight. If children live with fear, they learn to be apprehensive, full of fear. If children live with pity, they learn to feel sorry for themselves. If children live with ridicule, they learn to be shy. Ridicule is a very bad thing because it brings that shame within. If children live with jealousy, they learn what envy is. If children live with shame, they learn to be guilty. Shame brings guilt. They go together. Exposure, shame. When Adam, was ashamed, the guilt, that guilt has been passed on from generation to generation. If children live with a tolerance, they learn to be patient. If you tolerate them, and they start to learn that this is the way you treat people. If children live with encouragement, they learn to be confident. If children live with praise, they learn to appreciate. If children live with approval, they learn to like themselves. That approval, a positive reinforcement of your words that you speak, they start to like themselves. If children live with acceptance, they learn to find love in the world. If children live with recognition, they learn to have a goal. Recognition, meaning that, oh, you did something good, thank you. That is good. Thank you, Johnny, for what you did. That recognition helps them to set goals in life because they like it. The next time they want you to do it, then they are able to set goals in life and live for them. If children live with sharing, they learn to be generous. If you live in a family where you share, have you kept something? Have you kept the cake for your sibling, for your brother? Then they understand that being generous is important and good. It becomes part of their life. If children live with honesty and fairness, if that is the way you operate in the family, you operate with honesty, you operate with fairness. If these children grow up, they will learn to be truthful and to be just. Truth and justice flow from the family. A family that is honest and fair to the members. If children live with security, they learn to have faith in themselves and in those around them. Children live with friendliness. They learn that the world is nice. It's a nice place in which to live. If children live with serenity, peace, they learn to have the peace of mind. These and many others are what children learn in the family. Why is family important? Because it creates, look at all those positive attributes I've just mentioned. They are something that the family contributes to the children, and they don't even think about it. You don't think about, for example, where friendliness in the family, what it will end up doing to your children. You may never think about it, but that's exactly what we are passing on. And when they leave later on and they start their own life, they will just continue with what they have been living within the family. A family, that's why polygamy is bad, because in polygamy, there is so much intrigue, that there is so much infighting, jealousies, outbursts of anger, witchcraft, one is matching the other, undermining this one, this mother is undermining this one, and they involve the children. By the time the children leave a polygamous home, a lot of evil has been planted in their lives. When they go out, these are the fights they continue with in life. It's like they will think that every place is like that, because that's what they have seen in the family. When they go to school, they take the same battles to school. When they go to church, they will take the same things that they have lived within the family. So it's not a small thing for us to raise children in an environment that makes them great leaders or good citizens. So I repeat the 5 generational rule. The love the children, the love the parents give, the values they teach, the emotional environment they create, and the education they provide will influence their children for 4 generations. This is a very, very important thing. So your children are an extension of you, your life, and your family life. The environment you've created in your family. If you're always quarreling, especially when children are listening, you're always arguing with your spouse, and the children are listening, you are not protecting them from your disagreement and discord. You don't know how much effect, what effect it really, really has. Every time you disagree and quarrel and speak bad words, that affects them. That's why you have to exercise a lot of self-control. And you say, I cannot do this when my children are listening. We cannot start arguing or this while the children are listening, because that environment you are creating, the emotional environment you are creating, is going to affect those children. And they will go with it wherever they are going. You may not notice it. It may just be a single day. If there is so much, exchange, bitter exchange, it exposes them to fear. Because for them, mom is their greatest protection. Now she's being shouted at, and then they feel insecure. If mama is suffering like this, about us. So this is the situation. Now, we looked at the bondages. Curses are bondages on families, because when God is dealing with family, when God is dealing with people, he deals with them in families. So they start with personal bondages, where you have chronic problems in life, but you pass those on to your family, later on to your clan, because out of the families we get clans. So these are the 8 ways that we are talking about where Satan attacks families. But they go beyond the families. They attack the whole clan, and later on the tribes, tribal bondages with generational sins. Sometimes it's the elders who made these covenants and ancestors. These covenants that were made by elders and ancestors continue to affect the whole tribe. These are major issues. For example, when the Alisila and Konewo were starting in the north, the elders of Acholi, many people don't know this, but it is a truth. Many elders, the elders in Acholi, came together at a place called Awichi, and they sacrificed a young man and took the land and said, we hand it over to you. Joseph Kony. We give you power over this land. Those elders have power. Every form of influence results into spiritual power. Let me repeat that. Because these elders are respected, they are revered by the people. That influence they have, they can either use it for good or for evil. But because people believe in them, what they do affects all the people that believe in them. That's the same principle why political leaders are very, very important. All the people have elected them, so but that election of saying you are to be our leader, when that person who has been elected in a position of office does something, it affects all these people because he is now sitting in a position of authority and influence, and that becomes a big key. If he does something good, it will affect everybody. If he does something evil, it will affect everybody because these people elected them. So the elders sit in that kind of position where they have so much influence. For example, the king of Buganda now, the level of influence that people, he has over his people is so powerful that what he does now affects all the people that believe in him, the people who revere him, the people who hold him in high regard. That's why Jesus said, everywhere you go, look for that person who sits in that position. The term he used is look for a man of peace, or look for the worthy person. The worthy person is that one who people think he's worthy, the one whom people think is worthy or is influential and has this clout. Because that influence now becomes a platform for spiritual authority. The devil looks for those too. He knows that he can privilege those people's influence for his own kingdom. So Jesus said, do the same. Go to those people who have that level of influence. Stay with them, don't move. Let them open you doors for my kingdom. So when a king, for example, Mutesa, said, you come and teach my people, he's a man of influence, he's the worthy person. So the gospel had a free course in Buganda because the king had embraced it. The same in Toro. The king in Toro was so open, got baptized, got involved in everything. It blessed the nation. The kingdom of Toro was greatly blessed because the king welcomed it with his whole life and commanded people over the land to be baptized, and he would not appoint anybody who was not professing Christianity, who was not baptized. That's how Toro became very powerful. Though it was initially just broke off from Bunyoro, it greatly got blessed by God because of the king. The king of Toro opened a big door the same way he as he had seen in Uganda. His mother had run away to Buganda and came with that young king. And so in his formative stages, he saw the gospel here. He got converted, he got influenced. So when he went back and became king, he did exactly the same in Toro. That's how Toro Kingdom really got greatly blessed. So I'm talking about tribal bondages, generational sins, elders and ancestors. Those covenants made by these leaders continue to affect generations. Then when you move from tribal, you get to the national bondages. For example, you compare a nation like Fiji. Fiji experienced transformation because of the gospel. You can compare and contrast that with Haiti and Dominican Republic, which are here. Haiti and Dominican Republic are the same people. It's just the boundary between them here. This, as you can see, is full of light, while this one is full of darkness, because Haiti, full of witchcraft. It's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. They are almost the same people like you see the Rwandese and the Burundi and Rwanda are the same people. Hutu and Tutsi speaking exactly the same language. But when you go to the Dominican Republic, it's the difference between light and darkness. So you can see bondages affects not only families, clans, and tribes, it affects whole nations. When there is earthquake, every wrong thing happening in Haiti, they have tried to transform Haiti in vain. World Bank, IMF, all these programs have not transformed Haiti. Because there's bondage. In 1804, the elders of Haiti entered into a covenant with the voodoo gods. The French had greatly oppressed the Haitian people. So they decided that these French people, they are oppressing us because they are using their God. Let us also sacrifice to our voodoo gods to get power to defeat them. And that's what happened. They went and sacrificed pigs in the city square, released so much spiritual power, and they were able to defeat the French people. And when they did, they said, okay, we agreed with the voodoo gods. We are dedicating Haiti and covenanting Haiti to our voodoo gods for the next 200 years. 200 years from 1804 ended in 2004. And when that time period ended, they renewed the covenant. The church wasn't able to know about it, and they renewed that covenant. So it's unbelievable. But those are national bondages. A whole nation can be under bondage, a whole tribe can be under bondage, a whole clan can be under bondage, a whole family can be under bondages. So these family bondages, clan, tribal, and national, are so key to deal with. What we are dealing with in this sharing is how to get free, the freedom. And these bondages especially come because of the covenants that have been made by people who have authority, people who have influence, So we go back to the roots normally. To identify those bondages, you go back to the roots, to who made the covenant, when was it made. For the family, many times you may get information from the ancestors, from the old people. But where you can't, the Holy Spirit may reveal to you, if you pray and seek the Lord, He'll show you where the bondage is and you can break it. So for Joseph Kone, for example, the land of Acholi, when the church realized that, took the time for repentance, that when they handed that land to Joseph Kone, look at the devastation of 20 years of devastation because of the covenant made by the ancestors. 20 years of devastation, ruins, people lived in camps and so on for 20 years because of a covenant until it was broken and destroyed. So we have to break those covenants before we can be free as families. So nations can be under curses, tribes can be, and for nations, thrones and altars are involved. We'll not go into that today, but that is a key issue. Nations like South Africa now, when you go there, they are institutionalizing witchcraft. Universities in South Africa want to introduce bachelors of science in witchcraft. So this is a minister advocating for witchcraft to be introduced in South Africa. This is a very unfortunate thing. They're emphasizing culture, but they are confusing culture with witchcraft. Witchcraft and culture, we can have good cultures, but denounce witchcraft. So that's the big issue of discussion. In Uganda, we go back to these foundational issues. There were two covenants that made Uganda. The Uganda we enjoy today is a result of a covenant that was signed, this is a very important part also. It was the Constitutional Conference in Lancaster House, London, on the 18th of September 1961, and the Independence Conference in Marlborough House in London on 29th of June 1962. These two are very, very important dates for Uganda. For some of you who are not aware, those two dates, let me highlight them here. The covenants that made Uganda, and these are the people who made that covenant. Colonial Office had 2 delegates. United Kingdom, as our colonial master, had 3 members. Uganda government had these people, 5 people. The governor, Crawford, Ben Kiwanuka was the chief minister at that time, and 2 lawyers went there to represent the governor and the chief minister, and then DP, and then UPC, Dr. Milton Obote as leader of opposition, Uganda Kingdom led by Kintuti Katikilo, district councils from the 13 districts. At that time, we had 13 districts: West Nile, Karamoja, Toro, Kigezi, Ankole, Bukedi, the one we are talking about. At that time, it was all Bukedi. Bunyoro, Madi, Bugisu, Busoga, Teso, Acholi, and Lango. Those were the 13 districts. Then Abani centers were only 2. Kampala and Jinja had 2 members. Then the conference secretariat was the secretary general. So that conference had 77 people, 8 leaders, 48 members of the delegation, and 21 advisors. That is the covenant that made Uganda. And those are the roots. For us as a nation, that is the day, as far as God is concerned, when the nation was initiated. That initiation is important. I'm not going to the details today because we're looking at the negative effects. So I've painted the broader picture of the impact from the personal, family, clan, tribe, nation. That is the broader picture. Now let's just go to the individuals now, to the individual families. There are 8 ways Satan attacks the family, and I outlined them. I gave you that time. Now I want to deal with the details. Why does Satan attack the family? How does he attack? First, marriage failure, stopping marriages, hindering people to get married is a big way in which Satan attacks families. Why should that be an issue to him? Because demons don't produce. The same fallen angels and demons that existed during Jesus' time are the same demons today. There were only 200 million people during Jesus' time on earth, only 200 million. And Jesus was casting out these demons, and they really had a bad time with Jesus. But you can imagine when he had 12 disciples and all of them were doing this. And through the ages, the church has grown. Out of the 200 million people, now we have almost 8 billion. If you were the devil, you would be so upset because human beings are producing, your agents are not. They are the same fallen angels and demons that you had 200 years, 2,000 years ago. But for these human beings, they are multiplying every day. They are reproducing. So the demons are overworked and the fallen angels are overworked. Before you had 200 million, now you have 8 billion. So in the next, whatever, if Jesus delays the next 10 years, how many human beings would be there. It took how many years? 200 million in 30 AD. In 1803, well, that's when we had the first 1 billion people on Earth. Almost 1800 years to just make 1 billion. It took those long time because the people are dying of sickness, of diseases, of what. So to make 1 billion took all those 1800 years. But it took only 100 years to make the second billion in 1900. Then from 1900 something, 1930, now between that time, in just about 100 years, look at the jump from 2 billion, now we're going to 8 billion. Yet it took 1800 years to just clock 1 billion people. So you can see why the devil fights marriage and reproduction. I hope you can see that it took 1800 years to move from 200 million to 1 billion. It took another about less than 100 years to move from 2 billion to 3 billion. Then 4 billion, 5 billion. Now we are almost going into we're going into 8 billion people. So this is one of the reasons the devil fights marriage, fights reproduction. So he wants people not to reproduce. He's doing his best to stop people. So when you hear that some of his agents want to kill Africans, producing all this, giving all these sorts of reasons, Africa is overpopulated. We need to stop this reproduction, abortion. All these are intended to stop. You see, God gave us the earth, but this earth has so much potential. It can handle hundreds and hundreds times more of the population we have now. The whole world now has almost 8 billion people, but it can handle 500 billion or so because it has unlimited resources. Look at India and China. China is a fraction of Africa, but they have 1.3 billion. Africa only has 1 billion, about 1 billion. But then these wise men of the West are telling you, oh, Africa, you are overpopulated. What? We have to kill some of them. That's what they are talking about. Overpopulation is a lie. Africa still has arable land, meaning land which can be farmed. In Uganda alone, we have we have 40,000 hectares, and we have only farmed less than half of that. The land, the number of millions of hectares that are arable, that can be farmed to produce food, we have only used a small fraction of it, I think 25, and thing is still idle. Even the farms we have done are just, on this old type of agriculture. If we do intensive farming, mechanized farming, would still feed the whole of Africa. One nation, Uganda, can feed the whole of Africa. In America, we have about 350 million people. Only 1% of those people are involved in agriculture. Only 1% of the 350 million people. That means the 1% are feeding the rest. And sometimes they have so much food that they have to throw it into the sea because they have nowhere to put it. So you can see some of these issues they raise are not true. India alone, a fraction of Africa, has 1.3 billion people. China has 1.4 billion. But you can fit all those countries in Africa. Africa alone can have all those countries. You fit them into Africa. It's huge. And yet we have about 1 billion people. So that is the point I want you to see. The devil doesn't want people to marry and to produce children. He hates human beings, And he is the one who is behind all those deaths, accidents on roads, accidents in the sea, accidents in air transport. That is the devil's strategy, to decrease, to limit the numbers of the population growth. So that's why you find chronic broken engagements. People get engaged, and then the engagement fails. Somebody say, oh, nekubye. They call it nekubye, something like that. Man comes in your life, says, I want to marry you, and then he changes his mind. And it happens again and again. Not every broken engagement is necessarily you are necessarily dealing with a curse. But if it happens again and again and again, and especially when you start to see it in your sisters' lives or in your relatives, close relatives from the same blood, then you know you are dealing with something. For me, I come from a family where my 10 aunties, Basenga, 10 of them never married. All of them didn't marry. They didn't marry. You imagine 10. And so it spread all over in the clan. They never married. And they were barren. Not only did they not marry, but also they didn't have children. Something must have been deep. There was something that had been done by our ancestor, which caused that. So I always tell the girls and the ladies from our family to deal with that curse. Broken engagement, so bafuka bannakyeyombekede. Okweyombekera is the word which means to build for yourself. Okweyombeka is to build. For a woman to build for herself her own house and live in that house alone. She cooks her own breakfast and eats it, lunch, dinner, sleeps. That's okweyombeka. You build for yourself a house, you live in it. So in Uganda, we call it nakyeyombekede. So our aunts became banakyeyombekede. So it is we, the sons or the nieces and nephews, who inherit their land, because our family had a lot of land. So when they are dying, they have to look for their brother or sisters, their brother's daughter or son, meaning nieces and nephews. I've inherited two of those. Two of those left their land to me. One was called Christine, and Christine Bwendi. She left me with all her estate because she didn't have children. Because she got saved, and I'm the only one who got saved, and said, you are the only one who has followed me, so I inherited her land. Another one called Sarah, she was a witch doctor for a long time, and her leg was amputated. So when she was dying, she left me with her land because she got saved at the end, lived with me in my house. I looked after her. Then she left me with her land. So I've inherited two of those. The few of others, I escaped. By the time I realized to start to come close to them, it was very late. I missed those. So anyway, the issue is that when there is this chronic broken engagements, you are dealing with something. It's an attack on the family. It's hindering birth, hindering the reproduction, or hindering marriage. Because when you hinder marriage, you eventually hinder child production. This is the main thing. So Satan hates family, he hates marriage, and so it hinders people from getting married. So others, you deal with somebody, you persist, and then you have an accident. Or you persist on going ahead and marrying her. Sometimes, the fiancé dies. I was dealing with a certain young lady. She came for counseling, and she said we struggled for a long time, for years, to break through to get married. And she said we've prayed, we fasted to get married, and we finally got married. But listen to this: they got married on Saturday. On Monday morning, she woke up to look at her husband, and he was dead in the bed. She said, the shock of when I was talking to her, it had taken about 3 years, but the shock, she said, it has taken me time to get over this matter. And because I said, what do you think was, because she said this problem was on my side, because none of my sisters ever married, and our aunties. And so, for example, that example, you can imagine it is the man who ended up dying because the spirit was fighting her. It is the marriage failure, to fail the marriage. This is a major attack on families. And some people who get saved, when they do not hear this taught, sometimes it takes so much long time without realizing it. Pastor Michael Chase was telling me one time, was praying for a lady, a member of church, and for hours they were battling this spirit. It refused to go, and they battled with this spirit, speaking back and saying, I'm not going, this one is mine, we have a covenant. And he insisted and prayed against it. He cast it out until at last the spirit said, katugende, ndaba nekyatuleta twakimala, ekyatuleta aleme okufumbirwa, takyasobola kati kufumbirwa, you can go. It said in Uganda, what he said in Uganda was, after all, what brought us, we have achieved. She's 65, she cannot marry now. We can as well go. I don't think we can even. Now, so you imagine that. So it's saying, what brought us, we have achieved, even if we leave. So all those years, that spirit was the cause of her failure, marriage failure. In Uganda, we have a saying, meaning sometimes you wake up and it is too late because the spirit has already hindered your blessing. And by the time you wake up, it's too late. So these are the issues. These are the attacks on the family. There's a question here, Edith. If one finally gets married late to a believer, but late to bear children, is it Christian to have a surrogate to have children? Okay, now I will come to these issues. I'm going to go through the list, and then we're going to discuss some of those issues, because there are many questions about this. So today, let me just deal with the number one and then number two. After you have managed to get married, especially when you are dealing with those forces of darkness, the same spirit may seek to frustrate that marriage. The same curse that had wanted to stop you getting married will now start to cause disharmony, discord, fighting, so that the marriage fails. As I've mentioned, the other guy ended up dying in bed on Monday when he had actually gotten married on Saturday. By Monday, he's dead. But in case she didn't die, still the devil does not give up. He would make sure he frustrates the marriage. Disharmony, disagreements, discord, fights, these are some of the ways the devil attacks the family. These are major things. Now, of course, some of these also come because people haven't changed. For example, some discord may come because you never say, I'm sorry. You know that there's so many battles would be stopped by just one of the two just saying, okay, I am sorry. Or you admit your mistake, or you just decide to keep quiet. And you say, no, it's not worth the argument. If something is true, why do I fight for it? The Lord will handle it. That comes by maturity. Immaturity sometimes contributes to this. But the devil also takes advantage of that even if the immaturity is there, you can still overcome it if there were no spirit involved. Let me put it this way. Greed is a work of the flesh. But if you allow this work of the flesh continue for a long time, a spirit will now come in. This time you will not be handling greed as a work of the flesh. You will be handling a spirit of greed. So I want you to understand that the difference. So when you are dealing with the work of the flesh, the Bible tells us to discipline our bodies. Paul says, I take control of my flesh so that I do not allow it to control me. But when the spirit has come in, a spirit of greed, you cannot control a demon. You cannot discipline a demon. If it is lust is a work of the flesh. Lust of the eye is the work of the flesh. But when a spirit, when you are in lust for a long time, a spirit now will come in. That time you can no longer control. That is how you tell the difference. Something you cannot control is a spirit. When you are able to control by reading the word, praying, and then you say, no, I'll not do it. Then you are dealing with the flesh. You discipline the flesh, you cast out the demon. You cannot cast out the flesh. You never cast out the flesh. You can't cast out the flesh, and you cannot discipline a demon. You discipline the flesh, you cast out the demons. So the same thing we are talking about here. If this harmony, this discord, disharmony, and fight come as a result of immaturity, that is something you can control and say, no, this is something that I will not allow. I'm going to trust the Lord to handle my husband or my wife. This is a weakness. So you control yourself. Then God takes charge of those issues that are. But if a spirit is involved, it will overcome you, and you end up always having these issues I'm talking about. So I want you to differentiate between the work of the flesh and the spirit. When the spirit is behind, it will orchestrate it in such a way that you are helpless. You are frustrated because the spirit always overcomes you and brings all these fights, this discord, this what, and so on. Now our time, we only have 9 minutes left, and I would like to hand over back to Bishop Kabuye in case of any comments on that. We'll come to the surrogates and the other issues, but I want us to restrict ourselves now to the 2 we have handled, because I'll come over to the others and we'll get to the bearing of children later on. God bless you.
Thank you so much, dear Bishop, for that teachings, and we trust even as you come on Monday, we will really need to go in detail, because this is so can I put it this way? And no one is free from this unless we are taught and we break off these cassettes and what have you. Thank you, everyone. We are meeting again 5:30. That is Monday morning. God mightily bless you for your support. Bishop, can I request you to put that my number where you send your support, the MTN and the Airtel. Please, thank you so much. We cannot say thank you enough for your support, because we have to do it. There is a lot we have seen. There is a lot to do, and we have to do it and do it now. So God richly bless you. Let's meet again on Monday. Amen.